This is the Hagmann and Hagmann Report for today. It is Wednesday, July 24th, 2013. This is a live broadcast. I'm Doug Hagmann. With me is my co-host, my son, fellow investigator, Joe Hagmann. Together we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, and we are about to present to you 3 hours of unbiased news, information, analysis, and information that you really need to know in these perilous times. For new listeners, we're gaining new listeners, by the way. It seems like every day, and I would just want to welcome the new listeners from North America and also from Europe, and new listeners in New Zealand and Australia. Welcome to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. We do broadcast live each and every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time here in the United States. Our home base is HomelandSecurityUS.com, and I want to also tell you that I want to give a nod to our neighbors to the north, CanadaFreePress.com, where you can find a lot of our research and articles there as well. And I do want to thank each and every one of you for joining us. And I want to thank you especially for your belief, for your trust in us, for you inviting us into your homes, your cars, wherever you might be, in your office, in your computer, at work. I want to thank you for inviting us, allowing us to be with you, and thank you for your investment of time. We respect your investment of time, and just want to say thank you so much for that. And thank you for your support, financial support. Without you, we would not be on the air, and I mean that. We mean that together. We're just so proud to have you as members of our extended family. Again, we're a listener-supported show, and every little bit helps. And just thank everyone. We just want to thank everyone for your support and your prayers. Speaking of prayers, before I bring Joe on, I just would like to ask everyone. We're asking for a miracle. We're asking for the healing hand of God to touch our very, very special friend, Pastor Bruce. And that's all. Pastor Bruce, he's from northeastern Ohio. He is a man of God. He is he does so much for so many. He feeds so many people. He ministers to so many people. Of course, yesterday he suffered a cerebral hemorrhage near his brainstem. He is in a coma. He is in the hospital in a coma. He's in critical condition, and it was funny today because I was going through my messages on my telephone, and I found a message that I had not heard before from him, and it was just simply touching base and wishing me a good weekend. That was from last week, and it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. But please, ladies and gentlemen, Pastor Bruce, he is in need of your prayers. His wife Sue, please, and their children. But really, we need a miracle of God. And you might not know him. He's a friend of Steve, good friend of Steve Quayle's, good friend of Pastor. He's just a good friend. Please pray.
Yeah,
Joe,
it's sad. At the same time, I do know miracles can happen, and what this man is doing is, and the amount of people he's helping, that will go on with or without him, but I think the Lord has a purpose for him, and I think he will continue serving that purpose, and our prayers do go out to him and his family for Pastor Bruce York.
And yes, and thanks, Joe, for saying that too, because he's just such a gracious man and such a giving man, and we're all one more piece of housekeeping, and go ahead.
I want to mention this before. If we get cut off and the whole feed goes down, we've had some issues where the power has gone off for a split second a few times today since we've been in studio this afternoon. So just in case it happens. We didn't blow up or get taken away. We'll be right back on air.
Yeah, it just we ask for your patience in that. It's kind of unusual because it's not even the generator would not even the backup power supply doesn't even have a chance to go on. It's that quick, but it's just enough to knock everything out and knock us off the air. But one last bit of housekeeping before we get into the news. folks, you know our sponsors, American Survival Wholesale. They have, we've teamed up with them, and they are offering through their good graces King James version of the Bible, and we do have a Bible drive. Anyone in need of a full-size King James version of a Bible, please, and if you can't afford one or if it's a strain, do not be afraid to ask.
Yeah, if it's for a neighbor, a friend,
yes,
somebody else that needs one that you know, also feel free to submit a request.
We had in fact, here's how you do it, ladies and gentlemen. It's very, very simple. If you go to HomelandSecurityUS.com, that's HomelandSecurityUS.com, our home base. On the left-hand side, you'll see contact information. There's my name and Joe's name. Then, in fact, it's underneath a little envelope, obviously, an email envelope. If you click on the Bible Drive, that'll open up an email message in whatever email client you might be using, whether it's Outlook, Outlook Express, or whatever. And all you have to do, if you need a Bible, just do this. Just put your name, address. We'd like a phone number, for shipping purposes. And of course, your email address we'd have. But just your name and address, your full name and address, your real name, okay? Now, we're not harvesting these for any nefarious purposes. Obviously, we're trying to ship the Bibles out. So please, just in the body of the email, you don't have to explain anything. You don't have to go into any, just your name and address, and we will put you on the list, and we will give it to American Survival Wholesale. They will, in turn, send out a Bible. It'll arrive via media mail, I believe. I believe that's how they're being shipped out. And if you haven't yet got your Bible and have asked, have requested it, it's on its way. Trust me. But we would like to see these Bibles in the hands of those who need them. And I cannot think, ladies and gentlemen, of if you have your preps, your survival, everything, ready to go, your long-term food and all this, man, you need a Bible. You really, in your preps, you need a Bible. And once again, this absolutely no charge, no obligation. You're not going to be put on any mailing list. Your name is not going to be sold. Your email address is not going to be sold. In fact, we will destroy the list after, or the names after the Bibles are shipped. Everything gets destroyed. The email gets deleted, and any paper copies will just get shredded, and that's it. But we feel the urgency right now to get these Bibles out. We've got I'm not sure. We've got an ample supply, so do not be afraid to ask, folks, please. And you're right, Joe. For a neighbor, an elderly person that ordinarily would not go out or could not go out because of budgetary concerns and purchase, a Bible, please click on that link which says Bible Drive. That'll open up an email, and all you have to do is put your name, your address, and if you feel okay with this, because again, this is for shipping purposes, your phone number. That's not a requirement, just your name and address, and we'll have your email address, and we'll get that sent out right away. And again, once again, this is really by the good graces of AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com. You talk about preparation. This is preparation, and we thank them, and we thank you. So we look forward to getting a lot of emails here in the next 24 hours. But please don't be shy. So that said, let's get into. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
Sunday we are going to have another show with Pastor Langford and Steve Quayle. That'll be from 9 to midnight. And Monday, V will be back on, as he will be on also from 9 to midnight on Monday night. So Sunday night, Pastor Langford. Monday night, V, both with Steve, and both at 9 p.m. to midnight Eastern Standard Time. So I know there's been a lot of inquiries about when V's coming back on. You can tune in Monday for that. And another great show. I hope it's half as good as last week's show, Sunday show was, with Pastor Langford. That show is called Getting Under the Ark of Jesus, or a similar title with that same message.
I don't think under, but perhaps on.
On the ark, yes, okay. Well, getting under the umbrella of the protection of Jesus, and that is so important. You guys have not heard that, go back and listen to that show. Pastor Langford was on fire. He was just amazing, and I just sat back and really learned a lot from what he said Sunday night. So hopefully, I'm sure it will be just as good as the show this Sunday, so tune in at 9 o'clock. Kicking off tonight, we were going to start with something Obama said in a story you did, but I want to start with this: the Gulf rig. There's a new oil rig in the Gulf of Mexico that has 50 miles south of Louisiana that has collapsed, and fire has enraged or engulfed it. A Gulf of Mexico drilling rig has partially collapsed off the coast of Louisiana after catching fire because of a ruptured natural gas well, U.S. regulators said on Wednesday. The firefighters are continuing to tackle the blaze, which broke out after a blowout on Hercules 265 natural gas platform around 10:45 p.m. local time Monday. Eileen
Angelico, yeah. She's the spokesman for the Bureau of Safety and Environmental Enforcement.
Said no one was on board when there was a fire started, and it was not known what sparked it. The 44-strong crew who were evacuated on 2 lifeboats after the gas began spewing to the surface will be interviewed about how they lost control of the well. None of them were injured. That's according to NBC. Now, I have to find the email here. We have there are other stories on the mainstream circuit here. Larry, thanks for sending this email. CNN explosion in Gulf of Mexico. That's from CNN. They're going to say a natural gas rig has exploded. ABC News, breaking news out of the Gulf, major environmental threat may be unfolding. Is this BP 2.0 what we're watching here? I mean, what is this as we see and have been just talking recently about the BP oil spill, the core exit? We've had Suzanne Posel on. We had Rose on. We've had some people to come on to talk about what is happening in the Gulf to other regions of the world, from earthquakes to these man-made disasters. And it is not good what we're seeing here. Well, as this is another, in the way I understand this, there was a subsidiary of Halliburton drilling along one of 3 wells. This could be the well that they were drilling off of, trying to move a pocket of natural gas that was getting in the way of their drilling. And this was from February 19th, 2013. And there was an article about this. I'm going to try and find it again, as I was reading it earlier. But if this is the same rig, who knows what went wrong. But obviously there was a foreknowledge of a potential for disaster if they were trying to do something back in February about this.
Well, yeah, I just want to add this. This happened 10:45 p.m. local time on Monday. If you listen to our program, I believe it was yesterday, maybe, that we opened with a general discussion, like a bookmark, if you will, about the methane hydrates and the crust of the earth and the potential in the salt caverns and the potential for mini Bhopals or Bhopals here in the United States. And those of you who don't recall, Bhopal was a chemical disaster, Union Carbide, India, back in I think it was 1984, December of 1984, that killed and affected a lot of people. And isn't it interesting that we're talking about this? And I've got a couple of sources. Well, Joe and I have a couple of sources who are plugged into the intelligence community, and they're talking about this. Not just this disaster, but the
Fukushima also.
Yes.
As there are new developments with Fukushima as well.
You know, and once again, part of the reason we're here is to give you the inside skinny on what the agencies are talking about from our sources. So when they we kind of out of the blue, when they start talking about Fukushima radiation and methane hydrates, and then we see this, I think we should pay attention.
Yeah. And we do have information on these methane hydrates and what they are. But I found this article here from February 19th, 2013. I'm going to put it into your Skype, Dad, so you can check this out as I read it. But if this is the case, if this is the rig, there could be some, we could already know what's going on. Drilling specialists have been pumping heavy fluids into a gas well 50 miles off of the Louisiana coast in a bid to halt natural gas moving among underground formations in the site. The intervention is taking place roughly 2 weeks after workers detected a kick or uncontrolled flow of fluid at the Apache Core well on February 4th. Although they activated a blowout preventer in response and were apparently able to keep natural gas from escaping the well, later tests detected that hydrocarbon had migrated from the bottom of the 8,300-foot hole to a shallow sand formation of 111 feet below the seafloor. Apache spokesman John Roper said the Houston-based company was continuing their efforts to control and mitigate the mitigation of gas in a safe and environmentally responsible manner. The company had contracted with the well-controlled specialist at Boots and Coots, a Halliburton company, to try and kill the well, generally by pumping drilling mud into the well. That works. The work is underway according to the Bureau of Safety of Environmental Enforcement. Now, this well was. It says the company is moving the Rowan rig, R-O-W-A-N rig, to the site 50 miles off the coast of Venice, Louisiana. In Apache, needs a drill relief well to intersect the existing well bore. So Roper confirmed Apache was continuing to plan for a relief well if it becomes necessary, but he would not be specific on the Rowan rig location. So this is a Halliburton company, and this is from February of 2013. Now, is this related to what we're looking at today? We need to find that out.
I have a real problem with this in terms of the lack of exposure, the lack of information that the American public, that the world is getting about the dangers associated with the earth changes and the for example, what happened with the BP Horizon rig. Understanding what happened there, there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation about exactly what happened with that, and the real explanations are perhaps a little bit. I don't know how you would classify it. A little bit more bizarre, perhaps, than the hyped up explanations. I guess what I want to say about this is the Earth is, of course, we know that the Earth is expanding. The crust of the Earth is kind of breaking, if you will, and there's a lot involved, or that plays an important role in what we're talking about. But for me to attempt to explain the science would be an exercise in futility. Believe me. I barely understand it myself. We'll bring Stan Deo on.
Yeah, we're going to try and get him on this week.
But there is something about this. In particular, just to reiterate from last night, there is something about this. These sinkholes that we're seeing, and the salt caverns that store these extremely deadly chemicals, where scientists, where the contractor, these companies believed that this deadly brew would be safe for tens of thousands of years. Now there's this big oops factor. Wait a minute, maybe it's not so safe. In fact, could, for example, sinkholes expand and rupture one of these salt caverns? And if that does happen, the release of the chemicals into the atmosphere, into the air, we would be talking about a Bhopal, India type situation, or could be. I shouldn't say would be, but could be. So we have to keep our eyes on this and understand that the physics, at least to a conversational extent, understand the physics behind it, because we have to be able to make decisions. But are we perhaps looking at a big, huge problem? And I think we are. This is something that we're not hearing on the mainstream media. We're not hearing from our government. We're not hearing our government say, look, this could be a potential problem, and we want to warn everyone. Look at what Love Canal was back in the 70s, if you're old enough to remember Love Canal. In fact, you can still go up to Niagara Falls, New York, and see the remaining portions of the Love Canal area that are still fenced off. But that was a big deal back in the 70s. Could this happen again and be exponentially worse? Absolutely. So we have to keep our eyes on this. And is this rig, for example, this explosion of this gas rig, could this be part of it? Well, I don't know. But I can tell you this, the BP Horizon, that situation was as a result of methane hydrates, as well as the construction of the well that was not up to specification. It was about the collars and such. But go ahead.
With the methane, and thanks, Eric, for reminding us, there is volcanic activity that is coming to like an all-time high. There are volcanoes that are dormant and active that are becoming very active, both underwater and above ground. And Eric sent me a story about a live video of an underwater volcano exploding, and it looks like a bomb, goes off or was dropped into the ocean. And that we see this volcanic activity increasing. We see these earthquake in diverse places. We see the earthquake activity increasing. These sinkholes are increasing. And now we have Fukushima. Now, Fukushima, there is there is a lot of news coming out of Fukushima. Fukushima emergency reactor number 3 MOX plutonium still poisoning the water 2 years later. But there are updates from this last couple days today. We know that the radioactive tritium levels are coming, and cesium are in the water. That water is coming back into the plant from the ocean radioactive already. You talked about the tuna fish, the 100% of the tuna fish.
The bluefin, correct.
Yes. And Al Jazeera here is reporting more steam rising from Fukushima reactor. The operator of the Fukushima nuclear plant in Japan said that steam had been spotted at the battered reactor for the second time in days and disappeared in hours. Steam was seen around the 5th floor of the building housing reactor number 3, Tokyo Electric Power Company said on Tuesday. The steam had raised concerns about the damaged reactor, but TEMCO still said no significant changes occurred, including the levels of potentially cancer-causing radioactivity the broken reactor is releasing. Now, steam was spotted from the same area on Thursday last week, but had disappeared by the next day without any cause known. TEMCO said it was looking at the possibility that accumulated rainwater had been the source. But let me tell you this. The steam that we're seeing, there was steam before this originally exploded. 2 days after the earthquake happened, it exploded. There has been talk about reactor number 3, about the fuel that's stored there. We have seen them say they have secured these fuel wells that they have there with...
You're talking about fuel rods now.
No, they have the fuel rods. Those are the stored rods that have been used that are sitting in coolant or in water. Those are all over the top of the Fukushima building and all across the plant area.
Right. And they were
we have the actual reactors inside that have actual tanks inside those buildings.
Okay.
Now, anybody that remembers watching the process of Fukushima where they started to deconstruct the buildings and try to make the tanks sturdy, well, they tore down the building number 3, and they said that the tank wasn't leaking, it was fine. But if that tank is still non-leaking, it still has the fuel that's inside there, I mean, there could be an explosion that would make the last one look tiny if this thing goes bad. And the steam is an indicator that this could happen. Now, steam could be explained away by a few other reasons, but the continuation of steam over a period of a few days at different times seems to me that would be more than rain.
When I spoke with my source, Joe, and our source, and asked, well, why haven't we been told the extent of the damage? And it might seem like, to you, ladies and gentlemen, it might seem like a very academic question or a very basic question, but why haven't we, as citizens of this country, been told about the extent of the radiation coming from Fukushima and how it's affecting us, our food supply, and understand that it's the food chain, of course, fish, and then what eats the fish, and it goes right into our food chain. So it's something that I don't want to be glib about it, but it's a gift that keeps on giving, throughout the generations. And but the fact of the matter is, this could have been contained, or at least somewhat contained, initially, but it wasn't, and it still isn't. Instead, it's almost like they're acting like, well, we're not going to, we don't want to get everyone excited.
And I have a few articles.
You got to push your button there. So
sorry about that. A few articles here. One from February of this year: Fukushima radioactive fallout confirmed in U.S. food chain. And it says the U.S. rainy season of 2011 extended to June, making it unusually long and troubling for many experts and citizens due to Fukushima's triple nuclear meltdowns, which began in March. And then an article from April 5th, 2011 from Natural News: EPA to raise limit for radiation exposure while Canada turns off fallout detectors. Now, this has been something that's been going on in America since Fukushima. They have raised the minimum or maximum allowable intake of radiation per person to the point where it doesn't matter how much radiation is in the air. They will raise it to fit the radiation that's in the air and not exceed it. The monitors have been turned off in areas. We know that there are plutonium particles. There are iodine,
cesium, I think. Yep.
tritium.
Yep.
Some of these have half-lives of 25, 26, 30,000 years half-life. One molecule, one particle you suck in could give you cancer. Now, all these fish and tuna fish, as you read yesterday, 100% are coming back contaminated. We have people we know in the U.S. and in other countries whose hair are falling out. They're suffering from radiation poisoning. The thyroid problems in children on the West Coast are rising and are not being reported on. There are huge problems and fallout from the Fukushima fallout that are being pretty much ignored and replaced by scandals that are not scandals but are distractions to begin with. And this is going to your story. We're going to get into a story my dad wrote, a little
it's the shortest article I've ever written, actually, which is according to some emails I've gotten, it's a refreshing change of pace. Thank you, Rocco, for that. The article, it's in fact, folks, if you don't mind, please share the article. It's on CanadaFreePress.com. It's on HomelandSecurityUS.com. The newest one. It's called "Sex, Lies, and Diversion." Of course, that's the play off the title of a movie, Sex, Lies, and Videotape. But it points out where I point out that the fact that we're growing tired of the continuing distractions created by this Obama holder regime of racial radicalization.
Yeah, and you mentioned here the Zimmerman Trayvon Martin thing, but we can apply this to just about any scandal, any story that is creating division, that is creating an emotional response or people to choose sides on either side of the aisle. But
I think the Trayvon Martin case is a perfect example, only because it fits within the official architecture of what of the Antonio Gramsci Marxist style leadership would be, and that's to divide and conquer, and that's what this regime is trying to do. So what I did was I just kind of tongue-in-cheek wrote a 350-word article. Like I said, it's the shortest one I've ever written. Did I just say read? Okay, I wrote this article, and I suggested here that perhaps one way to get the Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman issue to be quiet forever, just ask. Perhaps we could just ask Mr. Zimmerman to legally change his name to Benjamin Ghazi or Benghazi. And if in doing so, we'd never hear his name again, because at least not from the Obama regime, because no one talks about Benghazi. So that's a kind of a tongue-in-cheek attitude I have, but it does. It's not all tongue-in-cheek, because you see, Benghazi, of course, is the window through which we can look at the beginnings, the historic beginnings of World War III. And I don't want to sound like I'm hyping this up, because I don't want to hype it up. It doesn't have to be hyped up. What we're doing, folks, is arming the Syrian anti-Assad terrorists, the Al-Qaeda related people, terrorists, to take down Assad and to put in place a Muslim Brotherhood regime. This is the agenda of Saudi Arabia, of Qatar, of Obama, of the Muslim Brotherhood. And then I threw in there a little dig to Anthony Weiner and Hillary Clinton and her aide Huma Abedin, who I call the new Tammy Wynette of New York State politics. You recall, folks, Stand By Your Man, Bill and Hillary Clinton during that time. Perhaps she could urge her husband, Anthony Weiner, also known as Carlos Danger, or maybe Carlos Dangler, I'm not sure which, to change his sexting handle to something less likely to be picked up by the corporate media. Well, maybe he could change his if he would Twitter under, or send Twitter comments or whatever under, we'll say something like a handle like Fast and Furious. No one would pick it up. No one would pay attention. So, again, a tongue-in-cheek approach.
Sad, but very true.
So, you know what? If you agree with it, I ask that you just either comment on it at CanadaFreePress.com and share it with your friends and family if you agree with it. Once again, trying to bring the light of day to what's really taking place, and showing that we are not being told the truth, that diversions upon diversions upon diversions. Do you really want to know about the sex life of Anthony Weiner and his wife and his exploits? No.
Well, I'm sure if you are involved in the political system where he is running for office,
New York City,
and if you still follow politics or believe in them or are voting, you might want to.
Well, yes, but it's sensationalized to the point of,
right.
We don't have to see the photographs. We don't have to,
right.
Exactly. Let's report on it and then move along. And it seems like if it bleeds, it leads. Of course, that's the old axiom for the press. But also now with this new technology where you can send photographs, why anyone would do this is just, I cannot even comprehend this.
Yeah, it's especially when you're such a public figure.
Oh yeah, I mean, to think that you would not get caught, a sociopath. But at any rate, that's, once again, I invite our listeners to go to HomelandSecurityUS.com and CanadaFreePress.com and share this article. Once again, only if you agree, and if you think it's worthy of it, share it with your friends, because it does have a message there to it. And the message is, let's pay attention to what's really important. And that's one of the big things is what's taking place in the Middle East is the agenda of this regime and of the globalists, of the power brokers, to ignite a third world war. Because as I said before, Syria will explode. We're going to find ourselves toe-to-toe with Russia in this respect. And the globalists are financing both sides of this conflict. So let's just pay attention to what's happening. And also, is this not a fulfillment of, or potentially to the fulfillment of biblical prophecy?
Yeah, we're going to get into that
Wow.
and other stories that have that biblical prophecy. What do I want to say?
Well, the element of
possibility.
That. Yeah.
But here I want to get into some economic news and some militarization news. 2 Americans added to food stamp rolls for every job administration says it's created. White House Press Secretary Jay Carney said yesterday that the Obama administration has pulled the nation from the depths of the Great Recession with the creation of 7.2 million private sector jobs.
Well, there's so much wrong with that statement, by the way, Joe.
Yes.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I got to tell you, there's so much wrong with that statement.
Let's go to what Obama said today in a speech. Obama decries phony scandals that distract. So he admits, these scandals distract people. But he says from economic action, this needs to stop. Now, let's hear what he has to say about how he has cut the deficit in half in his presidency so far. Let's listen.
Then, over the last 6 months, this gridlock's gotten worse. I didn't think that was possible. The good news is a growing number of Republican senators are looking to join their Democratic counterparts and try to get things done in the Senate. So that's good news. For example, they work together on an immigration bill that economists say will boost our economy by more than $1 trillion, strengthen border security, make the system work. But you've got a faction of Republicans in the House who won't even give that bill a vote. And that same group gutted a farm bill that America's farmers depend on, but also America's most vulnerable children depend on. And if you ask some of these folks mostly in the House, about their economic agenda, how it is that they'll strengthen the middle class, they'll shift the topic to out-of-control government spending, despite the fact that we've cut the deficit by nearly half as a share of the economy since I took office. Or they'll talk about government assistance for the poor, despite the fact that they've already cut early education for vulnerable kids. They've already cut insurance for people who've lost their jobs through no fault of their own. Or they'll bring up Obamacare. This is tried and true. Despite the fact that our businesses have created nearly twice as many jobs in this recovery as businesses had at the same point in the last recovery when there was no Obamacare. So, I appreciate that. That's what that's about. That's what this is about. That's what we've been fighting for. But with this endless parade of distractions and political posturing and phony scandals, Washington's taken its eye off the ball. And I'm here to say this needs to stop. This needs to stop.
I mean, wait a second. Boo. No. Okay, there's a lot wrong with what he said here. Obama decries phony scandals that distract from economic action. This needs to stop. During a major speech on the economy from Knox College in Galesburg, Illinois, Wednesday, President Obama aimed some sharp criticism at Washington for taking its eye off the ball by Succumbing to endless parades of distractions via political posturing and phony scandals, he told the supportive audience in attendance, "I am here to say this needs to stop." With an endless parade of distractions, political posturing, and phony scandals, Obama continued, alluding to the uproar from conservatives over the attack in Benghazi, the IRS targeting political groups, and the DOJ subpoenaing reporters. Washington has taken its eyes off the ball, and I am here to say this needs to stop. And in the beginning of that speech, he said, people are not focusing on the fact that he has cut the national debt in half as a share of his economy since he took office.
Right, and I think...
But let's break the statement down.
Go ahead, because I do want to hit numbers and an explanation after you're done, because it's important for people to understand exactly what he's talking about here, because it's something to say, is this statement correct? Technically, yes.
Yes. Okay, here's the deal. You have $1 trillion debt when you take office. Your government spending that you've added to that debt is $10 trillion. So now you have $11 trillion in debt. Maybe you cut your own spending in half. Is that how it's being looked upon? So you have maybe $5.5 trillion you've added to the debt. So you've cut the national debt in half for your share of the economy, which is still adding double. Right.
Yeah.
It's all just a mingled twist of words and language. He has not cut the debt at all. I don't care if he says it's been done through his share of the economy since he's taken office. But what was it when he took office? Like 9 trillion? It's 16 trillion now? I want to know how that equals half. Well, and then even half of the 9 trillion he said he would cut in half by the end of his first term, and if he didn't, the voters would hold him accountable. But his math, we should have a surplus, I think.
Well, just so people understand this, because I was really confused over this, and how could somebody say this and not be called out on this? What is the national debt? Well, the national debt is made up of publicly held debt and money that the government owes to itself. Okay, so right now, and by the way, there's two types of national debt. There's gross debt. To me, it's all gross, and there's federal account debt. Now, without getting really technical, because we don't have to do that, we can just be pretty using general terms, and you'll get the point. And if you want the technicalities, folks, you can search them on your own. But here's the deal: the raw numbers are extremely interesting, and the more telling statistic, the size of our gross debt. And remember, what's debt? National debt is made up of publicly held debt and money the government owes to itself. You were pointing. Do you want to say?
Well, I want to throw in the job and food stamp statistics here. Since 2009 in February, the first full month of Obama presidency, 9.5 million Americans dropped out of the labor force. Nearly 90 million Americans are not working today. So the 7.2 million jobs that they said they added still don't equal the 9.5 million that have been lost since the first full month in office. That means 1.3 Americans have dropped out of the labor force every one job the administration claims it's created. There are more than 15 million Americans on food stamps today than when Obama assumed office. At the end of January in 2009, 32,204,000 Americans received supplemental nutrition assistance. As of April 2013, there were 47,500,000. Now, Bush also doubled this under his term.
Yeah. Listen to this, folks, just really quickly. The size of our gross debt, we'll say before Reagan, was 33%, okay, of our national, as a percentage, sorry about that, as a percentage of our overall economy. So the debt as a percentage of our overall economy before Reagan was 33%. You got that figure? Okay, listen to this. Buckle up, folks. Before Ronald Reagan, 33%. During the Reagan administration, it jumped up to 53%. During George H.W.'s reign, it went up to 64%. Clinton bounced it down to 56. George W. bumped it up to 77. And then here, strap yourself in. We are now at 105% overall, the size of our gross debt as a percentage of the overall economy or our gross domestic product. All I'm saying is we're bankrupt. And a lot of this comes from what the debt is, the money that the government owes to itself because of borrowing from large entitlement programs like Social Security and Medicare. So if you think, when people say, well, Social Security and Medicare, they're unfunded or unfunded liabilities, there's no money there. The money spent on discretionary programs has declined overall as a share of the economy. However, as the baby boom generation heads toward a requirement, we're not going to have any money in the Social Security fund or the Medicare fund. And Willie Sutton once supposedly or allegedly said that he robbed banks because that's where the money is when asked. Obviously, he was an infamous bank robber criminal. Obviously, the money is not in the coffers of our government, or I should say in the places that should be. So the bottom line is this is a bipartisan. In other words, we're not talking about merely Obama. We're talking about globalists. We're talking about corporate interests. We're talking about globalists. Can I underscore that word? Globalists, who have no allegiance to the United States, taking this country down through reckless spending and debt. And where does, for example, who is making the money off of all of this, the interest off of the debts? Who's making the money? It's the international banking system, the international banking cabal, of which the Federal Reserve is a part of it. And I didn't mean to dominate or go off on a tangent there, but I think it's important for people to understand, Joe, that what we're seeing here is just a giant Ponzi scheme, and which is why, by the way, we've asked me to come on and be very specific, as specific as possible, with what's going on with the markets. Because how is it that your numbers show that you read, how is it that we could have a market, a stock market, be so high, trading high, and gold and silver be getting just pummeled, and everyone's saying, well, we're in this recovery phase, when the numbers are saying otherwise? It's so confusing. I mean, to me, it's confusing, folks. I don't know. Is it confusing to you, or I mean, is it just me? If it's just me, I don't think it is, because when I talk to people, I get the sense that they're confused as well. We are essentially in a wartime economy. And by the way, what do you think this pending war is going to do to the coffers of the defense contractors? Oh, who's going to be making the money? The defense contractors. Who's going to be spending the money, paying for all of this? Folks, you and I. A war in our name. None of this is right. And we're at the precipice of this. So when he says these scandals draw away from the real issues, well, no. These scandals are crimes, and some of these scandals are not scandals at all, but they're crimes of severe magnitude, like Benghazi, like the IRS. Can you imagine 30 years ago, or if this was during the Nixon administration or Kennedy or wherever, and there was this kind of stuff going on during those administrations, but at this magnitude, this would not have been tolerated back then. I just get passionate about it. I didn't mean to take over the conversation, because I know you've got other numbers and whatever, Joe. But man, this is just incredible. This national debt and the debt ceiling, and John Bonnier, what's he doing about this? Nothing. What are the Republicans doing? Yeah, once again, this should tell everyone that the right-left Republican-Democrat paradigm, or this thinking that we can vote people in based on party, is going to fix things. It's not going to fix things. In fact, we really cannot stop. We're past the point of no return. We cannot stop what's going to happen economically. We can slow it down. Hopefully, we can warn other people. We can get in positions of relative safety. I say relative safety because, once again, the economy, the United States, we as a country, and in fact globally, we're like passengers on the Titanic. Now, we can't afford to panic. We have to prepare, and very calmly, very wisely, just walk others in a very calm manner to the lifeboats. And we do that through preparation, both practical and spiritual. And that's what this program is about. Let me throw that in there, too. So, wow.
Well, getting into some other news, we have urban warfare training exercises continuing in Chicago. In the late evening hours of July 22nd, several Black Hawk helicopters flew low over central area of the city of Chicago without any lights, startling a number of residents who are not aware of the scheduled military helicopter training exercises. And no, I'm not reading a redo of last year's or earlier this year's articles on these military helicopters flying low through cities. A July 10th Chicago Tribune article on fresh exercises planned in the nearby suburb of Tinley Park cited Tinley Park Emergency Management Agency Director Pat Carr on helicopter exercises planned for the 23rd and 24th of July, but there was no indication of where these would be taking place. Not visible on City of Chicago website front page, but placed in the Office of Emergency Management's news section, having gone on that site from around 5:30 p.m. Central Time, was a vague notice reading, "The City of Chicago is providing support for a routine military training exercise in and around the Chicagoland area on July 22nd through the 25th. This routine training is conducted by military personnel in cities across the country, designed to ensure the military's ability to operate in urban environments as service members meet mandatory training certification requirements and prepare for upcoming overseas deployments. The training sites have been carefully selected to minimize the impact on the daily routine of residents. The training is not open to the public."
Joe,
Really?
let me ask you a question, because you do train where you intend to fight, and they're training in this urban environment. So, are they intending to like invade Abu Dhabi or Dubai? Because you're talking about urban downtown Chicago.
There's a few ways we can look at this. A few ways. One is, say there was a natural disaster in America on a large scale, and there needed to be rescue efforts. We'll say Katrina for one. They needed to fly helicopters around rescuing people, although Katrina is a terrible example of rescue efforts, what they should look like. It was a situation.
Are you wearing rose-colored glasses there, or what?
What?
No, I'm just kind of joking with you, but you're right. They could be training or preparing for rescue as natural disasters. But I just said
FEMA. This is
rose-colored glasses approach to the news. But okay, but
I'm just saying it's a way of looking at it.
It's legitimate, right?
Now you have the desensitizing the public, the conditioning element of the helicopters for some type of martial law. That could stem from a disaster, an economic collapse, a war, something of that nature.
That's correct.
Or a terrorist attack. Do you see an all-out military deployment on the American people against the American people?
Do I see that taking place? Not. I mean,
that's like the worst-case scenario, what people think.
Right.
And we need to break that down a little bit and think about that.
Yeah, you know what? That's right. Because we don't. The truth of the matter is startling enough. We don't need to hype it up and create something where there is nothing. So when we, it's not the sky is falling approach. However, reporting on this, and you're right to look at all angles of this urban exercise, including the benefits to the American people. But is that what's really happening here in the context of the ammunition being purchased by the agencies and everything else? What are we actually seeing here? And what are we being told from the federal government or from the government? Is there, what is at play? Because I agree with you. We could. Are they training perhaps to save us? Is that a possibility? Well, it's a possibility.
Well, if coming to invade and engage us is a possibility, then coming to rescue us has to be a possibility also. But either way, these could be done on military bases. They could, with the money that they have, through the defense contracting, through the money that's been siphoned out of the Federal Reserve, they could build ghost cities like China and conduct these exercises. Now, would that be feasible? No. But there are also, 35 drone bases in Africa? We have how many military bases across the world in how many different areas? Training for these types of exercises had to be done somewhere aside from the U.S. cities before the last few years. Am I wrong? So why not those same places?
And that's a valid, legitimate question. So I think that, once again, we have to look before we go out and sound the alarm bells and say, my goodness, the sky is falling, which it's
we
not.
have to be fair and look at it from all conceivable possibilities.
Exactly. And how many people are really doing that? First of all, addressing this issue. A lot of people don't want. A lot of reporters or pundits don't want to talk about this. When we have helicopters flying over the very places that we live and work and have families, it's important to talk about this. It's important to address this because we need to know exactly, or maybe not exactly, we need to know what the heck is going on with this and look at all of the possibilities. So you are correct, but I would caution people now to look at this in the context of the larger agenda here. Look at the economy and the potential collapse. Are we going to see just this massive civil disorder? Are we going to see a collapse of society? The end of the world does not. I mean, the end of, we'll say, an economic collapse. That doesn't mean the world's going to end. You're still going to have the Empire State Building standing. You're still going to have Dodger Stadium out there, or whatever stadium. Is there a Dodger Stadium? Okay, thanks. It tells you how much I know. I mean, you're still going to have malls out there that exist. Life is not going to end because of an economic collapse, but life is going to change dramatically. Life as we know it is going to change. Life as we're living it today is going to change. And I think a lot of times people get caught up in the unnecessary drama, the unnecessary hype. Now, am I downplaying this? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm not downplaying the serious nature of this, not in any way, shape, or form. On the other hand, we're just putting it I believe, in the proper context and perspective, at least in my view. And I think you did a good job by bringing that out, by saying, look, could this be for rescue efforts? Could this be? But why don't they tell, Joe? Why wouldn't they come right out and say, well, we're doing this in preparation for a catastrophic disaster? Why wouldn't they come out and say that?
They have in certain government documents. They have said just as much.
But government documents that are well hidden on the internet.
Right. Just like we have, if you really want to know the truth of things, you're not going to find it by watching one news report, watching an event happen on TV or in your city, unless you know the people involved, why they're involved. It takes a lot to get to the truth of just about anything.
That's right. And hopefully, folks, that's why you tune into our program, because we do the research for you, report back, and then let you decide with your additional research. Folks, you're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report on this, the 24th day of July 2013. I'm Doug Hagmann. In studio with me is Joe Hagmann, within striking distance, actually. I'm just kidding. Together, we're the father-son, I believe the premier father-son investigative team on the internet. We're going to be right back after these messages.
The car. cars, where it seems that the he said, she said typical argument during a fender bender can now be replaced by something else. It's recorded. That's right, the same kind of black boxes in airplane cockpits are now recording all of the details of a car's movement, from location to speed to whether or the passengers were actually buckled up. A new report from the Boston Globe shows that a staggering 96% of new cars sold in the U.S. have the black box inside of them, and many drivers don't know it. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration wants that number to be at 100%. Data from the cars are being used more and more to discover the truth in accidents and criminal cases, but it's leaving some privacy advocates asking who owns that data and how can we rely on it. It's just another reminder to make you sure that you read the manual before you get behind the wheel. You never know what kinds of recording devices are stored within.
That was a 1-minute report from RT about black boxes in cars, watching most drivers as they unwittingly have these boxes without being told. And welcome back to the Hagmann and Hagmann report this Wednesday, July 24th, 2013. I want to do this. Yesterday we had a lot of callers that called in at the end of the show we did not get a chance to get to. We're going to open the phone lines up, and we're going to start taking calls halfway through this hour, and halfway is halfway tonight. So 9:30 Eastern Time, we'll start to take your phone calls. Jumping to another story here. U.S. city looks to penalize Bible believers. Think it's hot in Texas these days? Just wait a few weeks until the San Antonio City Council ends its summer hiatus and resumes work on a proposed change to its non-discrimination ordinances that apparently will discriminate against all those who take the Bible at its word and follow it. That's because the change creates a penalty for those whoever exhibits a bias, which clearly could include adopting the Bible's condemnation of homosexuality with a permanent ban on
or any type of participation in city government and
business or employment.
Yeah,
opponents of this plan, which would add sexual orientation and gender identity to the non-discrimination ordinances, charge it as no violation of constitutional Article 6, Paragraph 3, which states, no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or the public trust under the United States. The opponents explain, however, that the ordinance would bar anyone from office who has demonstrated a bias against someone based on a category that includes sexual orientation. Now, I wanted to get into this just a little bit because people should not be biased against other people because they are homosexual. We're told to love each other, from our brothers to our enemies. We don't have to love lifestyles. We don't have to love sins. But we are told to love people. We don't have to accept people if they're living in a life of sin, like hang out with them or be part of their inner circle. But we're not told to hate or condemn them in a way that would sound like what this is trying to explain, like looking down on somebody.
Well,
we're told in meekness and kindness
to
honor a correction.
Pull up a chair. Son, pull up a chair. Come to the kitchen table.
Okay, I'm here.
Okay. I understand this because, in fact, I had a very interesting conversation with a pastor of a local church here because I asked him, I said, how do you, for example, when a homosexual couple would come into your church, how do you handle that? And he said, well, we love we love the people, but we condemn and we don't condone the sin. And I said, and I'm being serious when I said, well, that's pretty flowery talk. That's really a nice soundbite. But tell me, for example, how you really handle this. I mean, how can you not address this issue and address it forcibly? When I say forcibly, I mean with the church doctrine or with the doctrine, or the Christian doctrine. And he explained to me. He said, "Look, it's we do, and we have we read the scripture where this behavior is condemned, but we don't stand in judgment." And I think that's kind of what you, Joe, are referring to. But what this article, however, or what this law is referring to, is for example, if I, as a talk show host, would say, I do not accept homosexuality. I believe that the Bible, the teaching in the Bible, is 100% accurate. Homosexuality is an abomination of God. And then I run for city council or school board in the city of San Antonio. Well, they could deny me that office. They could, if I'm in office, they could move to have me removed from that office. That's what this is about. They would consider me guilty of malfeasance and remove me from office. Folks, do you see where this is headed? Now, Joe, do you see the difference here? Because I'm not trying to correct you.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to kind of guide you into this. This is beyond this tolerance of evil. This is actually being proactive against someone who says the Bible is the Word of God.
Okay.
And by saying, well, hey, by saying that, you've got a bias against, in this case, the homosexuals, and that means you would discriminate, or that's discrimination, and we can't tolerate discrimination, so therefore you cannot be held or you cannot hold public office.
I mean, I understand when it comes to churches having their hierarchy, whether it be, to the choir, to preachers, that the tolerance of allowing homosexuals into these positions of power in the churches is wrong. But what I'm saying is we cannot discriminate. I mean, we all have our own sins that we're working on. Just because we're not
I agree
homosexuals and that's our sin, we have other sins that we work on.
I
I lie. I have bad thoughts. I get angry. Should I not? Should I be looked upon as lesser of a person because of that? And that's what I'm trying to say here is just sin is sin. People are people.
I understand because you've got a good heart, but you're missing you're not missing. You're not addressing the point of this. What the city ordinance will do, and this is the important part of this, is if you, for example, and I'll say this again, if you condemn or if you're on record condemning homosexuality because in the Bible it states that it is an abomination, you are automatically disqualified from running for office.
Well, then if you condemn liars, if you condemn adulterers, if you condemn thieves, if you can any of those, then you should not be eligible for public office.
Right, according to them. However, what they are doing is they're taking the homosexual community and not making it equal, but making it a very special class of people, elevating them above the heterosexual community in this case. It's insane what they're doing, and this, folks, I believe will be spread because if you look now this is from an article from WorldNet Daily from Bob Unruh. But if you look at what's taking place here, what Bob Unruh doesn't get into is the motivation behind this, is the template behind this. Do you think that the city council of San Antonio just woke up one day and said, we're going to do this? No. There is a federalization aspect the impetus behind this is the federal programs that you're not hearing anything about that is propelling this. And this is where the danger lies. The danger lies from, for example, the federal government's involvement in local and state, county politics. This is exactly what's happening. It's matching funds. Follow the money. Once again, we're looking at this in a too small, in a too narrow of a manner. Now, again, I understand what you're saying, Jonah, and I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with this, where there's this disqualification for your beliefs, which has nothing to do with your job.
No, I agree. And a city making an ordinance telling somebody how they can and can't be employed based on what they deem as inappropriate or deem as something that they would not partake in, or I guess you would say, being judgmental. But we are called not to judge a person on their eternal soul, but we are called to try the spirits, to judge which spirits we are dealing with, and we are called to, know the people we are dealing with too. And
but wait a minute, but hold on a second. We're still at the table here, because that does not mean that we have to embrace.
No.
Okay.
But we are to have discernment. When people say, oh, that's judgmental, you're judging me. Judgment of someone's salvation is different from judgment of someone's character or behavior.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree totally. However, now let's go back to the real world scenario here of what's taking place in San Antonio. To me, this is a bias against Christianity, a bias against anyone who believes in the Word of God. This is a war that is being waged against Christians. If you look at really what this is all about, this is an attack on you, Joe, me, and most, I would say 99.9% of our listeners. You're telling me that not you, Joe, but these people are telling me if I lived in San Antonio, because of my belief, I cannot hold public office. And if I'm in public office, you're going to have me removed because I condemn or adhere to or proclaim that the Word of God is my belief system? Are you kidding me? This is where we're at in this country.
And this is just the beginning. This is nothing. And I don't mean to say that with or condescending, or say it like you haven't seen anything yet, because I don't want to see what is going to be happening, as things are going to get very bad and dark and much worse than they already are. But this is what I say is a trial of our faith. This is a stumbling block or a test for us, as we are called to act a certain way. We are called to think a certain way. And each one of these, whether it's political scandals to stories that deal with immorality of people, we are called, this is a test to us, and we're called to use this to try our own faith. This is how it said we are purified through the fire. These are trials that we can use as examples instead of mistakes we all make in our own lives to use those as examples. We can use other people's mistakes too as examples for ourselves. But I understand what you're saying about the ordinances of San Antonio.
Yeah,
yes,
it
will be an ordinance soon that unless you are under an Luciferian initiation, unless you take the mark of the beast, you will not be allowed to live.
Correct.
So, which ordinance are you going to follow?
Right. And do we not have to have be prepared to say, look, we're not going to put up with this baloney. To me, if I was, for example, if I personally was San Antonio elected official, appointed official, and I became unemployed because of this nonsense, because of this baloney, this crap that they're pulling, this war against my beliefs. Yet, isn't it odd that they mention the Bible, but yet they fail to mention the Quran? They fail to mention the beliefs of Buddhists and the Hindu and Buddhist beliefs.
Well, why is that? We've went over this a lot of times.
Why is it? Because it's a war against the monotheistic religion of Christianity.
And who's behind this war?
It's the Luciferian agenda. It's Satan, ultimately. I mean,
yeah,
and the
spirits of darkness.
Satan, right. But in what I can grab onto, the digestible chunks of this, the people behind it, if you follow, obviously we have a war on the spiritual plane, but if you look at the earthly plane here and follow the money, follow the reasoning, follow these idiots, and I use that term correctly by definition, in my view, or perhaps they're not idiots, perhaps they're just evil. Either way, to me, this is a war against Christianity. This is a war against the people who believe in the Word of God. And to tolerate this, if we agree and we tolerate this as Christians, then we are tolerating evil. And I will not tolerate evil. I cannot do it. I will not do it. And I will speak out against it and do everything in my power, because I believe the war is on, the lines in the sand have been drawn, and this is an issue that we've got to take seriously.
No, you're right. We do need to call out the evil when we see it. We do need to call out the moral issues and problems and failures in humbleness and humility and in kindness and in meekness to correct those who are the ones doing this. But the bigger agenda here is at play. We are in a different time, like none before, nor ever will be, nor ever was. And things are going to be a lot different. The things that we think we know, we really don't know. Reality is going to come crumbling down around us, and then we'll learn some truths that we wish we were looking for when we had the opportunity. But moving along here, so we do get the phone calls on time. Department of Homeland Security nominee under investigation for helping Hillary Clinton's brother.
This is precious, by the way.
Authorities are investigating the man President Obama tapped to take over the second highest spot in the Department of Homeland Security for allegedly using his position and power to unfairly obtain U.S. visas for foreign investors in a company run by Hillary Clinton's brother, Fox News confirmed. Alejandro Mayorkas, Director of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, was named by Homeland Security's Inspector General's office as a target in an investigation involving a foreign investor program run by the USCIS, according to an email sent by lawmakers late Monday. The investigation was opened in September of 2012 following a referral from an FBI counterintelligence analysis. The probe was first reported by the Associated Press. The investigation into Mayorkas was based on allegations he helped secure U.S. visas for Chinese businessmen after they had been denied by his own agency's officials. The visas had been sought by Gulf Coast Funds Management, a finance company headed by then Secretary of State Clinton's brother, Anthony Rodham, according to an aide to GOP Senator Charles Grassley, who had received internal USCIS emails about the matter from a department whistleblower.
Follow the money. That's all we have to do. Follow the money trail.
Yes, and it goes on to say at this point, and this is other article I'm reading from now is NBC News, at this point in our investigation we do not have any findings of criminal misconduct. The email from Homeland Security Inspector General states, we are unaware of whether Mayorkas is aware that we have an investigation. Well, judging by the headlines that are on the internet and in the papers and on TV, I think he knows.
I love that comment. Well, there's no indication of criminal activity here. Wait a minette. Yeah, there is.
Yeah. Gulf Coast has received media attention in recent months over its partnership with Green Tech, an electric car company run by Terry McAuliffe, the Democratic nominee for governor of Virginia.
Good old Terrence McAuliffe.
Okay. In a letter to Homeland Security, Janet Napolitano released Tuesday night, Grassley asked for details about the department's handling of the company's application and quoted from an internal agency email about the Gulf Coast describing it as politically well-connected company and noting the involvement of Rodham and McAuliffe. However, the author of the email, who is not identified, added, after noting the firm's political connections, not that I think it matters because it shouldn't impact how we do our job. But either way, we have Mike Kelly, who is being looked at to head the Department of Homeland Security now, and he's calling for a stop-and-frisk policy for the U.S., saying we can't police without it. We have the Department of Homeland Security has been infiltrated by different organizations and groups with many different agendas. And as you said earlier, pointing out the San Antonio ordinance that they want to put in place. Why is the Bible singled out as the only holy book that people have biases based on that book? Why is that the only book being used as what they want to do to pretty much label what is biased and what's not biased? Not from the Quran, not from the Book of Mormon, not from any other source, but from the Bible. And it does beg the question. But the government is filled with people, some bad, some very bad, and some that are decent. But in the top levels, we just see more and more of this corruption, more and more of these, let the one hand help wash the other, these self-fulfilling agendas being fulfilled by using positions of power where people sit. It would be like me having a friend in jail while I'm the governor, pardoning that friend, not because of the merits of the case, but because of the reason that he's my friend. This is not how government works, at least not how it works efficiently or lawfully.
We have a tyranny. We are living under a tyranny. We are living, and think about this, ladies and gentlemen, what we're seeing is the return to the royal class and those of us not a member of the royalty, but merely subjects. This is what the first American, we fought the revolution for this reason, but yet now Obama, if you look at what Obama has been doing, and not just Obama, but George W. Bush as well, because this is a bipartisan globalist agenda. We are not picking on or not selecting Obama because he's got a D, Democrat, after his name, which should be actually a C for communist or an M for Marxist. It doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with the party, because the party system is gone. We see that with John Bonnier, who obviously has refused to investigate the various issues, who has refused to take the point on Benghazi. He's refused to take the point on you name the matter. He's not doing his job. He's succumbing to this single party global governance system. These are globalists. These are people who have been bought off by the corporations, by the globalist entities. But we're looking at a system of royalty, and we're not in it, folks.
That's right. We are going to be taking calls. 661-244-9839. That's 661-244-9839.
Did you forget that number there for a second? You hesitated
on
the spot.
I had some. I was burping from drinking coffee here. If you really want to know the truth.
Well, wow.
We're going to play a quick audio clip here while we get the phones going here. Avoiding Big Brother prying eyes. Make privacy a thing of the past. This is from RT.
The NSA's stranglehold on digital data communications makes privacy seem perhaps like a thing of the past. So RT's Marina Portnaya tried to see if she could avoid Big Brother while going about her daily business in New York.
In a post-Prism USA, anonymity has become a rare commodity. Some accept it, others are outraged. But at the end of the day, there's no easy way of escaping the prying eye of the NSA.
5 years ago, I would have said, cell phone, little snitch in your pocket, dump it. Don't bring your cell phone with you all the time. Now it doesn't matter. Now you have automatic license plate readers that track where you are. Now you have Metro passes and Easy passes and the city bike system and facial recognition.
Like it or not, every American armed with technology has been cast in their own 24-hour reality show. The National Security Agency is the uninvited paparazzi you never see or hear.
It makes me more careful about what I speak about on the phone and the way I conduct my business. And I think it creates a certain consciousness that weighs on us.
I feel like at this point I'm just a number in all of their data.
Everything these days is so critical to use, and that technology is just part of our lives now, and it's kind of unavoidable if you want to keep up with what's going on these days.
What are you going to do? Not have a cell phone, not have a car, not live in a city?
The only solution for living NSA-free is to divorce from all things digital. Experts say using encrypted search engines or changing security settings on social networks isn't enough.
The truth is, you have to maintain alternate identities and compartmentalized identities. You have to behave like an intelligence agent. You have to constantly be thinking, what tracks do I leave?
Clearly, retaining privacy under America's web of surveillance requires some sacrifice. And here is where we're going to figure out how much. So first things first, I use a subway to get to work. Now, if I use my credit card to buy my Metro card, then I could be tracked. So instead, I'm going to use cash. Easy. I usually check emails and voicemails during my 5-block walk to work, but living NSA-free requires living without a cell phone. Fingers crossed I'm not missing any breaking news right now. So now I'm at my office. I need to swipe a key card to get inside. A security company knows.
You get the idea, right? You got to push your button again, but yeah, you get the idea, folks. Are you gonna avoid? Where can you run and hide from the NSA? The answer is, well,
maybe the NSA. Remember they can't get their own emails.
Yeah, that's right. They can't perform surveillance on their own people because they don't have the capability. So okay, but the bottom line is you're seeing this. We started out with Mike or with Kelly, national stop and frisk policy. Well, obviously that's a direct attack on our rights, our privileges to be secure in our persons and our property. Yet no one, once again, few people are saying, wait a minute, this is insane. We have to stop this. And now, of course, people saying, well, how do you avoid the NSA? Folks, you're not going to be able to do it. It's not going to happen. Sure, leave your cell phone at home. You can put yourselves in positions of, you can make it harder, but you're not gonna eradicate the threat. Do you know what I mean? So that's just
yes, I do.
All right.
We're going to go to the phone lines. Give us a call at 661-244-9839. We're going to take calls while we go through the rest of the news that we do have lined up for this evening.
We want to hear what you're thinking.
Area code 304. We're coming to you first. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. 304. You're live on air.
As dead air is not really good for radio, we're going to move on. 304, sorry.
We'll come back to you. All right, we're going to go to area code 856. I think this is Sheila. Sheila, thanks for holding. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. What's on your mind tonight?
I just got a chuckle then out of your dead hair. I just want to tell you that I'm backing away from the news. I got so disgusted with Fox News because they kept on that Zimmerman thing. I just shut them off, and I'm not watching them anymore. And the web. When I told you that story about these supposedly 72 people shot in, in Boston on Drudge Report, he said that wasn't a true story. I haven't been on his website since. I'm sick and tired of when I read something, I want it to be the truth, and it's like we're not getting the truth anywhere but the Hagmann and Hagmann Report and Steve and Rick Wild. So I've pretty much backed away from all of it and just listened to what I can trust. And that's a sorry place to be.
Thank you for that. And it's really like we open. It's a minefield out there because it's so easy, Sheila, to be sucked into something that's not true, or it's so easy to be to read something, and pretty soon your blood pressure goes through the roof because it's being hyped, and there's always an agenda behind the corporate news, whether the mainstream news media. But like I said in my article, all George Zimmerman has to do, if he wants to stop being the subject of conversation of Obama, is just change his name to Benjamin Ghazi or Benghazi, and Obama will never utter his name again, because that's what happens. He doesn't want to talk about Benghazi, for example. But yeah, Sheila, thank you for trusting in us, though, and we believe.
I do.
We've got a
you're
duty.
Consistent.
Hello.
You're consistent with your reporting. You know.
Well, we try to be. Yeah.
Well, you are, and I don't like being in this place where you can't trust what people are saying, and the media. Dumb, and to see Obama out here, and he always heads for the colleges, you know, and all these people sitting around. I mean, he had 5 years to see what this man's doing to this country, and applauding him. And I'm just clinging to the cross at this point and listening to the Hagmann report and repeating Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Lean not on your own understanding.
Well, Sheila, we thank you so much for your vote of confidence. And look, if you invest the time to listen to us, we do attempt to provide you with what's important, at least through our discernment, what we believe is important. And Joe and I constantly rotate stories, articles, information in and out. Our producers involved, what's important, what's going to affect your life, but thank you for your compliment, and just keep tuning in.
I mean, I question that rig out in the Gulf at this point. What's going on with these rigs? Why all of a sudden are we having that kind of a problem? And all these explosions in different parts of the country. What's going on with all that? We're not hearing about that. Only with you.
No, but isn't it funny that we were talking yesterday? Joe and I opened the program. We were talking about the methane hydrates and what's we believe could be a developing potential problem that no one's talking about. And you mentioned it just now, the sounds, the explosive sounds. People say, well, what's this all about? Well, could it be, Sheila, that we're not getting the truth about what's really taking place? Could there be a catastrophe that they know about that we don't know about? And if so, why?
Because they want us dead. That's why they're not talking about Fukushima. I mean, the fish in the Pacific is contaminated at this point, but nobody's talking about that. But how many times have you said that they're wanting depopulation? Well, what better way to do it than let us eat contaminated fish? My daughter said
that's a slow kill. Yeah, Sheila, that's the slow kill process. We've heard Alex+Jones talk about it for a long time. We've heard others talk about that slow kill process. We're in that phase right now. Go ahead.
My daughter sent me down some salmon a day before yesterday, and I've never ate salmon, but I swore up and down it was glowing.
Well, folks, I don't know. Salmon is the only fish. I shouldn't say the only fish. My wife makes me eat salmon.
She makes you eat it?
Well, it didn't come out right. I guess she likes it. I like it, and we had this discussion after she. I'll tell you. Talk about a hard sell. You think I'm a hard sell? She's a hard sell on various issues. But after hearing our reporting on Fukushima, we had a discussion. Do we have to take like a nuclear radiation detector to the grocery store? And I'm serious, because now we have to start asking, where does this fish come from? If you eat salmon, where does it come from? And is there,
pretty much everything at this point, Doug.
Yeah, you're right, man. So, wow.
God only knows. I have to wonder, when you had that gentleman on, it's a seismologist, and you was asking about the chemtrail thing and whatnot.
Oh, Scott Stevens, yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't remember his name. You know, I had to wonder about that because, you know, I've had MS for over 20 years and it's always been stable. And here in the last year, it flared up on me. And, you know, I'm a realist, you know, living with this, but you have to wonder, you know, what's in the air at this point? You know what I mean? Was it something that caused it to flare up? I don't know. But I sure have wonder.
What's in the water? What's in the food? Sheila, I want to thank you for your call. We got a bunch of other callers we're going to move on to. God bless you, and it's great to hear from you.
You too, hon. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
She's a good friend of the program. And it's rough, especially when you've got MS or any debilitating disease. It's a difficult life that people don't understand too. So we've got to make provision for our fellow family members, extended family members that listen to this show. You know, think about them too in a crisis moment or in a situation that you know could be developing. How can we best help them? So, all right.
Moving right along, we're going to go to area code 614. 614, you're up next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hey.
Good evening.
This is Carolyn from Unionville Center, Ohio.
Hi, Carolyn.
Hi. I just wanted to let you know that I've been listening to you since about February, and I've learned more from February till now than I had learned in my entire Christian life. It's just amazing as a guest that you have. Joe, I want to tell you, any mother would be proud to have you for a son. You're so respectful. I love your heart. And Doug, you're a good dad. I don't think the two of you know how much you mean to all of us listeners. I don't think you have any idea. I can't tell you how much your show means to me. I listen to you every night. I grieve you on Saturday. And I can't wait for Sunday when Pastor Langford and Steve are on. I just love it. I love all you guys. You are my family. I feel the love of Christ come through these radio waves every night. Yeah.
Wow, thank you so much, Carolyn.
Well, it's awesome, and I just wanted to share that with you. But I had one more thing I wanted to say. You know, there's so much bad going on in this world. We also need to remember there's a lighter side, too, that God does have a sense of humor. You know, God made giraffes, and God made me. And a little story I wanted to share with you. Heard the pastor and other people talk about being unequally yoked. Well, that happens sometimes. I mean, when I got married, we were equally yoked, but I got saved and he didn't. And it's kind of hard, and sometimes I do feel alone. And, you know, since I've been listening to you guys, I've been building my bug-out bag and, you know, trying to get ready and trying to strengthen my prayer life. And one day he hurt my feelings. And I told him, I said, why is it? I said, you're so good to everybody else. But you won't do one thing that you think will help me. And I went outside. I was cutting rhubarb. I was getting ready to make a strawberry rhubarb pie. And I went outside and I said, Lord, the Bible says to pray is for those that hurt you. And I said, so I'm praying for him. And I was just hacking at that rhubarb. And, you know, I come back in the house and I was making my pie. And when I come back in, he was running a sweeper. And it dawned on me, I thought, Lord, he's cleaned the house and he don't even know why.
Oh, Carolyn. Oh, my goodness. All right. Wow. But wow.
He's got a sense of humor too, and you know we have so much bad that we have to really cherish the sweet things that the Lord does for us. And I just thought that was sweet. And I wanted to share that with you, and I wanted to tell you how much I love you and how much I appreciate the show. And we're with you. I pray for you every night. And I pray for everybody else that's been on guest and anybody else that's out there. Marianne, I love Marianne. She's an awesome lady in God. And I finally got the courage to call, and I appreciate you giving me just a few minutes to talk with you. So
it's our pleasure,
you have a wonderful night, and hopefully we'll talk again sometime.
Oh, please, please. You know, look, we're all one big family. Carolyn, you're a part of it. You're on our hearts, and you feel free to send email, call, but stay in touch. And thank you so much. We're humbled by the fact that you're listening and by your kind words.
Well, thank you. You mean a lot to us. You really, really do. You have a good night. God bless you.
God bless you too. You mean a lot to us as well. What a great call.
Yeah,
fantastic.
You know, it's humbling because it's just humbling. That's all I've got to say. Although, Joe, I won't give I don't think I have his last name. Mike, however, takes issue with us because Mike, I just got an email from Mike. Let me tell you what Mike says here. Can I tell you? No, let me tell you. Come on. See,
I'd rather hear from callers, but okay.
Okay, well, no, I just got to tell you this because although Carolyn likes us, Mike says the Hagmanns could not find their way out of a paper bag.
Most days, that's probably right.
Yeah, some days you're right. But thank you for that. But dear Hagmanns, Mike writes, one, now I'm not sure, there's really no coherent aspect of this email except there's 4 things and then a sentence here. He says, Dear Hagmanns, 1, Lois Lerner takes the 5th. 2, Liz Hoffaker. 3, Washington IRS attorney named Carter Hall. 4, IRS Chief Counsel William Wilkson, an Obama appointee. Okay, and by the way, I would take some spelling lessons there. And then he closes his email by saying, you can whine all day long and still you will be able to do nothing. Signed, Mike.
That's true. You can whine all day long.
Well, yeah, we can whine.
And not have any positive results. But
I wonder, here's my question to Mike. Mike, how do you feel knowing that you're listening to this program that you apparently detest, yet you listen? Are you learning anything? Are you developing a relationship with God?
Yeah, I'd rather people listen to this show, no matter what their personal feelings are, rather than not. Because I know I do my best to bring the truth that I find, and not just my truths that I find, spiritual truths, whatever form that may take, however it looks. That's my goal. I can't speak for you because I don't know what's in your heart. You're probably just in it for the money and the good looks on the radio voice you got.
Yeah, my Porsche is. I'm driving a Porsche and I'm trying to get up to a Bentley. No, you know what? But seriously, you're correct, Joe, in what you're saying. It's about. This is bigger than us. By the way. We've found, and I got to tell you this, we found that people who don't like our show, they listen to us twice as long as those who really love it.
Well, I wonder how many are paid to do so. We're going to move on. Area code 305. Thanks for holding. We're coming to you next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Room.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
Well, I just wanted to touch on the salt dome, that whole thing in the Gulf. I was starting to think about that when the Macondo well blew out there for whatever reason, the people involved in it, that the CEO of BP and all these hedge funds and all of that. They have such luck that they happened to pull all their money out of that investment in that well a couple of weeks before it blew. and so they didn't lose on it. And BP also, now people wonder why, they would be invested in the green energy and everything too, but they are. They're heavily invested in the the algae farming, which is the next scam, I guess. But anyway, right after that happened, an oil insider, Matt Simmons, came out and said the whole thing was really fishy, and he thought there was a real problem with the scenario the way it was, and he said that the seabed, they had cracked the seabed floor, and where they drilled right down over a huge methane deposit and right on the fault line that runs up, the Mississippi River there to the New Madrid. And that and so after he came out and started speaking, he mysteriously decided to sit in a hot tub in the middle of summertime and have a heart attack. But at the time, it was also floated out that these methane deposits that are down at the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico there at the seabed, if that was to burp and come up, that could ignite. And also where that well is, the Macondo well, it's a series of salt domes that curves up right up into where the Corn Bayou sinkhole is. Now, when they decided to dump all that core exit and take all of that oil to the bottom of the ocean there, that core exit is extremely corrosive, and it could be all of that chemical from the oil and the core exit is undermining those salt domes, and it's like a domino, okay, that goes right on up. And for some reason, that the Gulf of Mexico is like a giant cauldron out there now of all of these chemicals. You got the core exit, you got the methane, you got the butane, you got the gas, you got who knows what's out there. Mixture of chemicals and everything. And now with this new well, that's interesting too. The platform's name is Hercules 247, I believe, and that equals like 13. But anyway, that's another story. But now that gas that's going up, that can suck the oxygen out of the air as well. And if it floats in over land or anything, people can get sick from that. And to drop off into another scenario, I know I'm bouncing around, but I read this over on, this is like a scenario. This isn't set in stone or anything. But I read this interesting.
You're surprisingly on point here, caller. You're not surprisingly. You're on point. You're making some very important points. So go ahead and continue.
Okay. Remember Nathan said that ports were in danger. Okay. I read this scenario today about a hurricane possibly being planned and to come into the port of Miami, come into Biscayne Bay, and that the plan is to blow a tsunami bomb offshore as this hurricane would come in. And in Biscayne Bay, there's a nuclear power plant called Turkey Point, and they would bring that surge of water in and take out that power plant and melt it down like Fukushima. Now, Miami is a huge money town. Okay, we're talking big-time real estate. It would wipe out the insurance industry. It would fold Florida financially. It would be a financial collapse to Florida, okay? And it would also also play into the nuclear hit, okay?
Okay. Now let me just real quick address, caller, one thing you said, and I think this is a very important, because if you would have said what you said, all of what you said to me, even a week ago, I might have questioned the validity of your statements, but I've got to tell you, since
he didn't understand
science. And no, you're correct. I guess I didn't understand the importance of what we're seeing here. For example, the Deepwater Horizon, well. And folks, you can do your own research on this.
Yeah.
The location is critical because of torsion physics.
And something else she mentioned is a hurricane. Well, we now have Tropical Storm Dorian.
Yes.
Which is approaching, and it looks like it's going to hit Florida and into the Gulf from the forecast models on the Weather Channel.
But caller, your comments about the wells and the methane and the salt domes and the sinkholes basically are extremely important to the conversation that we started yesterday, and we want to get people thinking about the potential for catastrophic events, or even not so catastrophic, even localized events. But there's the potential there that we have got to look at, and it seems that this is becoming an issue of extreme interest to the people inside the intelligence agencies, including FEMA, for example, which would explain why, in a kind of convoluted way, what FEMA was doing in New Zealand. But I'll stop there. But very good caller. Very good.
Okay.
God bless you. Thank you.
Hey, we're up against the break. I want to thank you for your call and your insight tonight, as it was very helpful and spot on.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Have a great night.
All right.
Yeah, and she made some very good points, and we are seeing this Tropical Storm Dorian. It says we'll move into a zone of Dorian. I'm sorry, what did I say? Dorian. Dorian will move into a zone of cooler waters, which may cause the system to plateau or weaken. The path of Dorian next week will depend on the strength of the tropical system itself and other weather systems surrounding it. Certainly, Dorian was moving swiftly along the west-northwest, around 20 miles an hour, this says. And yesterday, we read an article about the CIA getting involved in a $630,000 study into how to control the weather. Now, we already know they know how to control the weather. This is just a way of them coming out and stating as much. And it is not a secret that the weather has been under control, or there has been a weather control system in place since the 60s. It's admitted as much in government documents. What is that, Project Porcupine or Project something along those lines? I'll get the correct name on the other side of the break. But with that, we are up against the top of the hour. We're going to take our break right now. We're going to be back with your phone calls for the rest of the show and some more stories we're going to try to hit on. You're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report this Wednesday, July 24th, 2013, as we are kind of all over the place, but really focusing on the earth changes, Fukushima, the new gas eruption that's happened in the Gulf, or rig that has erupted in the Gulf.
Well, the lies upon lies upon lies upon lies, and the media blackouts, and no one's telling us the truth. That's what we're focusing on. You're right. And before the break, let me just say this once again to those who just tuning in. The Bible Drive is still going on. If you need a Bible, please, HomelandSecurityUS.com. Click on the Bible.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to our third and final hour this Wednesday, July 24th, 2013. We're going to go right back to calls. I just want to hit on this story real quick. How does America's middle class rank globally? How about number 27th? That from Zero Hedge. You can find that article by going to Zero Hedge. I'll post it in the chat room, as that is important, as we were talking about certain economic issues earlier. Going back to the phones, we're going to go to area code 719. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Yeah, Joe.
Yes.
Hey, how are you doing out here in the Springs? I just wanted to say thanks for all you guys do. I was out here in the Black Forest Fire and all that good stuff, kind of crazy. And hey, I wanted to talk quick about last night I had a caller that was kind of talking about how we have the need to vote and do all that. I think we've gone a little bit past that point, haven't we?
Well, in my view, this is Doug speaking. In my view, we still have to continue the process. However, we cannot rely on that process. We're past the point of really relying on our votes, period, but we still have to go with the process.
And see, I disagree. I say we don't even engage in the process. But
so what are you going to do? You're going to go to bed?
Well, you don't have a winner. There's no winner either way.
So you don't vote?
Well, what are you going to vote for? When the same agenda will be put through regardless of who it is that is the face of the...
Well, that's a rather defeatist attitude. Now, I understand that, you've got to exercise, or, you've got to use it or lose it, so to speak, but certainly don't rely on it.
What do you think, caller?
Well, listen, I fought in the first Gulf War, served in the Marine, did all my thing. I mean, I did some special forces kind of thing, blah, blah, blah. And I just kind of lost heart. I wake up in my country, and I can't figure out what country this is anymore. I mean, it's progressively gotten worse and worse. As the economic side of things continued to collapse, I was a builder at one time, and, it's so funny how they think that there's some kind of recovery going on, and there's not. And it starts from the local level all the way on up. And every morning I wonder, because I read the news, and I of course, Zero Hedge and some of the other, financial things. And I'm shocked that it's gone this far. and just like Joe, I just don't. I mean, I know that there's a lot of maybe folks that think that we have a semblance of a choice, but I mean, red team, blue team, or the third party option doesn't. It seems like every day it's like it gets worse and worse. What would they do? Vote today to not stop spying on us by barely 217 to 214 or some crazy stuff? I mean, what country are we in anymore?
No, you know what, caller, I agree with you in that sense. But let me ask you a question. What about all politics really is local, as the saying goes. Can we not begin the change at the local level by voting people in that we know, at least that are not corrupted, at least in terms of what we believe to be, and then we're not going to be able to change everything politically, because there is no political solution to a spiritual problem, as Steve Quayle says. But
I agree 100% with that. I mean, I think the only thing we can do now is, and this is, I went through a very dark period, and I'm sure probably a lot of folks listening and stuff went through. I mean, there was like a time where, and finally, I just got right with God, and I came to the point that I have to live each day to the best of my ability. The one thing I found pretty interesting, and I agree, we try to get people on a local level, but it even starts with the school board. I think we just got, our society has gotten so complex. So I think we've gone so far off of our moral and sane junctures as far as the people that we were supposed to be versus what we are now. I mean, back in the 1950s, Chesty Puller, retired Marine General, said, if our country continued this way, that a hardier race would come in and breed our women and create, what he said was, if our country continues this way to be soft, a hardier race is going to come in, take our women, breed a stronger people. I'm butchering the quote, but basically what he said is, we've gotten soft. We're not the people that we were back even 150 years ago, or even like during the Civil War days. People got ate by bears and stuff. I mean, nowadays, and it's just crazy how you can look at the progression of how especially from the 80s on up, how you can slowly see the decay that's come into our system. I really don't think that there's much we can do except try to be happy on a daily basis. And one of the things that's funny that I thought about the prepping and all that stuff is there was a lot of preppers out in the Black Forest, and when that forest fire went up, I mean, until the situation, whatever is going to happen, happened. I mean, you can prepare for it, but like Mike Tyson said, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face.
Okay. Well, did you fight those fires, by the way?
No, I'm building out there. It's like basically 7 miles from where I live. In fact, this weekend too, I'm going to the prophecy conference that's here in the spring.
Oh, cool! All right.
Russ and I guess Alvin Marzulli and the whole crew's gonna be out here. But no, it was crazy because then I live 5 miles from where it burned up last year. So it was kind of suspicious how it's going, and it was really weird. Guys, I was talking to a guy that lived, right where I was at, and he was like, his house burned up out there, and he's like, they're talking about how they found that it was definitely arson. That they have determined, but the way, whatever type of propellant that they used, I guess went vertically against how one would have thought it would if the wind was trying to take it. So somebody used some kind of nasty propellant. And I cruise out there on a daily basis because I got a couple jobs around right now, and it's crazy to see the devastation out there. And I just, my heart goes out to those people. But a lot of those people out there in that area, were pretty, pro-gun, prepping type of thing. And all of a sudden, their preps went to heck really quick. So it's kind of crazy. And there's another couple things I'll tell you guys real quick, and I'll let you guys do. But I saw some interesting things. And since we're right here by the Air Force Academy and all the military bases and whatnot, and I have a bunch of my buddies that are down in Fort Carson and whatnot like that. But I've seen a bunch of C-131s or C-130s flying pretty low lately. It looked like, and they're going, from south to north in that direction, but they're flying a Dash 1 and a Dash 2 right behind it. Pretty low, and I'm thinking I couldn't tell the markings on the planes, but I mean, it looked to me like they were practicing. Back in the day, that's how we used to practice jumping out of aircraft. Typically speaking, when you do a military jump, it's 800 feet. So, I mean,
what do you make of? What do you make of that? Based on your experience, what do you make of that?
Since we got 5 military bases in our local area, I mean, it's hard not to get too paranoid on it. But there's just been a lot of. I mean, like I said, we're around a military base, so it's hard to be totally too paranoid. But we've had a lot of fast movers that are flying pretty low. But that could be the Air Force Academy doing its thing. As far as seeing C-130s like that, haven't seen them in a while flying that low in that particular area. But I couldn't, there's no rational reason why they'd be, doing drop zones. I didn't know that out here in this area if they do a lot of jumping. It's hard to tell. It's just weird. I saw it the other day and I was like, that's interesting. So, and one of the things too during the fire, which was crazy, they had the National Guard out there like that. And they locked that place down tight, quick, because you couldn't get up and down certain roads. I mean, there was one time I was driving out to go to a job and they had shut the road right behind me as I was driving out. They're secured. And they had the National Guard. I mean, they turned me, and it was for several days after the fire. Was in different areas where they had the National Guard out there the whole time, cordon off the area. So, I mean, I guess we work closely with the National Guard, but I found that it was kind of interesting that they had. I mean, you didn't hear any call-ups, but they had them out there manning all the checkpoints and securing it pretty quick. So, it was interesting. Maybe I got to take that tinfoil hat off or something, but.
No, let's keep, caller, please keep your eyes open and definitely report back to us if you, with observations like this. This gives us some context by different geographical locations as to what's taking place. We really appreciate your call, my friend. God bless you.
All right, have a good evening.
Thank you, man. Interesting.
All right, moving right along here. We're going to go to area code 713 next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. I'm sorry, 605.
Good evening, Brother Doug, Brother Joe.
Good evening.
Marcus. God bless you, my friend.
God bless you, man. I'm just enjoying the show very much. As I said before, you've certainly got the best audience in the world. And I spoke with you, Doug, just a few days ago about something that I felt that I had been given by the Lord, and I have got that together, and I'm listening to the audience, and they're very adept in exposing the darkness. And a lot of times it seems like sometimes the more we learn, the more we're tempted to be overwhelmed. But I just want to share, and I will share it as we can, but that there is hope in all this. The Scripture says hope deferred makes the heart sick. But as we learn about everything that's going wrong in the darkness that's around us, there is definitely hope, and there's a place of peace and safety. And I just want to share that with you, that when the time is right, we can release that revelation to you.
Okay, and ladies and gentlemen listening to this program, this is Brother Marcus Samuel. Hopefully, well, it doesn't matter now. I just gave out your name. Brother Marcus Samuel is, by my definition, a true missionary, a man of God. He works with Native Americans in the heart of America, if you will, in the Dakotas. In fact, we have Brother Marcus's contact information on our website. And for those who want to get in touch with you, you've got a ministry, sir, that I would support. We support your ministry, and I've got to say that you are a true man of God. And folks, this gentleman that we're talking to right now has seen things, experienced things that we talk about in theory. This man has seen it in reality. And I want to thank you, sir, for bringing the Word of God to those who otherwise would not get it. And, folks, can you believe in the country, in the United States of America, there are locations where, like the Native American reservations, where the Word of God is not spread, and it takes people like Brother Marcus to do exactly that. And we thank you for what you do. And by the way, we look forward to hearing about your prophetic word and what you were saying earlier to the audience. I just want to let the audience know that you and I had a conversation off air where you were given words that I think would be important to share with people. And when you're ready, you can we'll schedule you, we'll bring you on as a guest, and you can do that because I think it's important for people to know.
Well, first of all, Doug and Joe, I thank you for your kind comments, and I would look forward, perhaps if we can work it out, where we can share that sometime next week on the program, because I think it's a very timely word. It's a word in due season. And I just want to encourage all your listeners tonight to continue to please keep their ear to the ground, listen, watch, observe, and anything that they might see that they find noteworthy, to report that back to you. They're doing an excellent job already. I mean, you have some of the most learned listeners and most astute listeners that I've ever come across in the time that I listen to radio. I don't listen to much radio or watch TV anymore, hardly, except the Hagmann and Hagmann show, and that's the truth. But I'm going to let you go. Let some other callers on, but I'll be looking forward to talking to you, Doug and Joe, soon, and we'll get this worked out for next week, because I do think that the Lord has a word for the listening audience.
Thank you, my brother.
God bless you, Brother Marcus. It's always great to hear from you. God bless. And look forward to hearing from you again.
I appreciate it. Love you. God bless. Good night.
Take care, man. All right.
Brother Marcus, stay away from those rattlesnakes, sir. No, we talked off air, and he told me a story about how he almost got nipped by a rattlesnake, and how after a head gets cut off a rattlesnake, they can still bite for a short period of time, which surprised me. That's something I didn't know. But dangerous nonetheless. Area code 713. We're coming to you. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Hi.
Hello. Hi, I'm here. I was tickled to hear Brother Marcus on, because the first time you had ever mentioned him, I think Steve Quayle was saying people need to help him, because he's really up against a battle, where he's ministering. And nobody ever gave word about where to send any funds or anything for him. So maybe you can get into that a little bit later. But you guys were talking earlier about, people never mentioning the Quran. They always mention the Bible when they're trying to do the things to us that they're doing. But what I've realized through the time is that even though they don't mention the Quran, it's like the country's being reupholstered, and it's part of the fabric. For example, do you guys know what the word demitude means?
Yes.
Have you ever heard it?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know that it's been used in the health care bill? Yes, it has.
Yeah. Okay.
I've never heard the word before, but it's in the health care bill. And when you look it up, a demitude is the Muslim system of controlling non-Muslim populations conquered through jihad. Specifically, it's in the taxing of non-Muslims in exchange for tolerating their presence and as a coercive means of converting conquered remnants to Islam. And now Obamacare allows the establishment of demitude and Sharia. It's part of the dictates of the United States. But people don't realize that.
Okay, I'm curious as to where in the health care bill this is. I don't doubt your word. I don't doubt what you're saying, because I know that there's provisions for Islamic beliefs in Sharia, but I didn't know, frankly, about demitude being used in the actual bill itself.
Yes.
Do you know where in the bill it might be?
Yeah, yes, it's on. It's on page 107 of the health care bill.
Okay, all right. I will look
That's
at
on
it.
page 107. Yeah, I'll go ahead and look at that. And what's really interesting about this also, because I have been furious ever since TSA started groping little old ladies and small children in airports, only to find out that this routine is not. It's not for Muslims because it's against their religion. Well, it's the same thing with this health care bill. It says that Muslim dictates in the United States that Muslims are specifically exempted from the government mandate to purchase insurance, and also from the penalty tax for being uninsured, because Islam considers insurance to be gambling, risk-taking, and usury, and is thus banned. Muslims are specifically granted exemption based on this. So everything that they're doing is for the Muslims. I mean, everything he's doing, and so many of these things are not coming out. I mean, people just do not realize.
Exactly. I like, by the way, I like the way you stated, but we're being reupholstered, and this is being woven into the fabric of America. You're exactly right.
700 count Egyptian cotton. That's what it is, and we don't even know it's happening. We don't even know it's happening.
Well, yeah, it's true. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. There's a lot of feedback coming through here.
Right.
But yes, you're correct. We are being assaulted in our judicial system by Sharia law. People should know what, for example, Dar al-Harb and Dar al-Hijra, the difference between the two, the House of War and the House of Peace, or the House of... and people should know that Islam means submission, and it can't coexist in a constitutional republic. Islam and our laws cannot coexist. So...
No,
exactly
it can't. And as a Christian, and even as just a plain old red-blooded American, okay? You know, we're being crippled by the IRS liens being placed against all of our assets, real estate, cattle, accounts receivable, and we could even face hard prison time because we refuse to buy insurance or to pay the penalty tax. But in the meantime, like people like Louis Farrakhan will have no such penalty, and will have 100% of his health insurance needs met, you know, by the de facto government insurance. And non-Muslims will be paying a tax to subsidize Muslims. I mean, that's dimitude. It's just, and I don't understand. I mean, I know the scriptures, and maybe people can remember some of the scriptures, you know, that God is just turning the country over to a reprobate mind, and that people are just being blinded to the truths here. But for those of us who are aware and awake, you know, he's bringing these things to light. And I just think it's important to keep up with them.
That's right. And we're going to move on to another caller. I want to thank you so much for what you've inputted into tonight's episode.
That's right. We are experiencing
Joe,
caller.
I also wanted to tell you.
Go ahead.
Okay, Joe, I also wanted to tell you, I think you're right. I think breaking away from the matrix and not voting in an election that is not going to, you know, be suitable to our outcome is just a waste of time. At least it is in this country now.
Yeah, that's the way it seems.
Okay, thanks, guys. I love you. Bye.
Well, thank you so much.
God
we
bless.
really appreciate listening.
Thank you for the call. Have a great night.
You too.
All right. A headline I want to hit here before we go to another call. 45 killed in a Spain train crash. More than 200 people that it was carrying, and dozens more injured. The number of people dead after a train derailed in one of Spain's worst rail disasters has reportedly risen as high as 56. Many more said to be critically injured. Spanish media reported emergency services were attempting to rescue several people still trapped inside carriages. The crash happened as a train carrying 218 passengers plus crew approached Santiago de Compostela, a popular pilgrimage city in the northwest region of Galicia. And it said that several of the 13 carriages rolled over, with one carriage torn open and flames, smoke being seen risen from the scene. Not good there at all, as those people are going through a tragedy, and we have seen these trail derailments, the bridge collapses here in the U.S., and our prayers have to go out to them. Also, cop A cop is fired for speaking out against ticket and arrest quotas. And Auburn, Alabama is home to sprawling plains, Auburn University, and a troubling police force. After the arrival of a police chief in 2010, the department entered an era of ticket, quotas, and worse. When I first heard about the quotas, I was appalled. Former police officer Justin Hainers, who claims that he and other cops were given directives to hassle, ticket, or arrest specific numbers of residents per shift. I got into law enforcement to serve and protect, not to be a bully.
How do you do that? I mean, not what you just asked, but how do you adhere to quotas? Right. I don't understand that.
You're creating lawbreakers. You're not catching the people who are actually breaking the law.
Oh, wow, man.
You're creating criminals. If you're only working for quotas, you're going after people based on numbers you are expected to reach, not on crimes that you're catching in progress.
I know that's something. And since you did that, let me just pipe in with something just real quick here. We often talk about what's coming, and we know bad times are coming, and there is, and we'd be remiss by not mentioning this, often we overlook one critical survival skill, and that's leadership, because we can be, as listeners to this program, we believe that you, the listeners of this program, will be the go-to person in the event or when things hit the fan, if you will, when things break down, and sometimes you've got to expect that that role of a leader when it's thrust upon you, when no one else is going to stand up in the face of adversity. So when we're concerned about things taking place, you might be, and you probably will be, one of those who will be tasked with leading. You'll be put in a leadership position. So what we want you to think about, at least what this show, get your mind right. It's because it does take a certain mindset to be, we'll say, a prepper or someone who prepares for adversity. It takes a certain foresight and a desire to survive. And while most people are content with just, the bread and circuses of the modern world, as a prepper, you are able to see through the appearance of normalcy out there. And you're able to see that things are just not quite right. And you can take action, and you do take action through various methods of preparation. And most of the information is aimed at our community. Most of the information aimed at our community, rather, is focused on lists like preparation checklists, what to have in your gearbox or your bug-out bag or on your shelves. But very few people talk about leadership, and that is something that I would really like to make sure that you consider. You may see yourself right now glimpses of your calling to be a leader. Folks, you are going to be the leaders in your family. Again, the go-to person, your friends, when everything does break down, because you are already being proactive. You are looking at the situation and understanding things are breaking down. So be prepared when others come to you, look to you for advice. So without realizing it, they're putting you in a position of authority. Now, whether they accept your advice or not, that's up to them. But at least you're planting mental seeds in their minds. You are the person who they consider knowledgeable because you may have spoken to them. They might know that you've been listening to this program. They might know that you've taken interest in current events and you're concerned about where we're going. But the first group of people, when everything does break down, the first group of people that you're going to have to lead is your family. But your responsibility to society extends beyond that group. And by the very nature of preparing for disaster and being one of the few, and I mean that, folks, one of the few that are able to cope, and I mean cope successfully, it does put you in a position of leadership. the suffering, the hungry, the confused, the people out there that are wandering with that deer in the headlights look, they're going to be looking to you. And why? They're going to question you. Well, why are you doing, how is it that you're able to handle things? Well, human nature dictates that these people that are looking at you, they're going to want something from you. And these people are going to generally to fall into two categories, really. And think about this, folks, and be prepared for this. Those that will work with you and those that will try and take from you. This is where your first obligation to preparing for leadership comes into play. So if you're serious, by the way, about your survival, I would urge everyone to know where you will end up when a disaster occurs. And I don't mean, what house. I'm talking about your general area. Okay, for example, have you assessed the resources available to you, let's say in your neighborhood where you live? Do you know your neighbors? Do you know which neighbors might be critical to your survival? Well, now is the time to begin to look at that. Make some assessments. Be prepared.
Yeah.
Okay. Leadership is an important role that every one of you will probably be called upon to play. Play your position. Build some coalitions. Work within a strong community if you can. And be the nexus person, the point person to bring others together, because we are going to walk or have to walk through this and get through this together. And like we say, you're on the Titanic. You're going to be the one that's grabbing the other people, holding their hand, and walking them calmly, yet quickly, to the lifeboats. That's leadership. And that's what we want to get. We want to have your frame of mind. Make sure your frame of mind is correct in that. So just think about that, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, very well said. Moving on to the phones here. Area code 916. We're coming to you next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hey, good evening, Joe. Doug, it's California calling, the retired firefighter.
Hello.
Just wanted, how you guys doing? Besides doing great and busy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Hey, I'm out standing on a rock right now. I'm out for a walk, but I'm praying. There's so much in my spirit, but one of the things I asked Joe, if you can get your Bible out, I've got a couple scriptures, but if you can go to Isaiah 42 and verses 13 and verses 22. Isaiah 42, verses 13 and 22. And the Lord is exposing everything in all of us and in everything. And he's doing this to restore. And this morning, when I was looking at Al Jazeera, because I like to look at all different type of media, there was a news article about the general of the Army was calling for a rally, a military rally, I guess, to stir things up. And if you have that scripture, especially Isaiah 42:13, if you could read that, this is what the Lord's been putting in my. Yeah, read that real quick. 13.
The Lord shall go forth as a mighty man. He shall stir up jealousy like a man of war. He shall cry. Yea, roar, he shall prevail against his enemies. That's 13.
And then read 22.
But this is a people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes. They are hid in poison houses. They are for a prey, and none defileth, for a spoil, and none saith, restore.
Okay, I've had that scripture, so I say restore. Lord, we thank you for restoration by your Spirit. Last weekend I was up in Lake Tahoe at the celebrity golf tournament, and I was up there witnessing. I've been doing it for about 9 years, and I've been able to pray for a lot of the players and people in general. But at the very end, I was talking with one of the retired quarterbacks for a Colorado team, and I got to pray for him, and it was awesome. And then I got to actually pray with Michael Phelps, not boasting about who they were, but where they were. And what was more important is I was in Harrah's in the lobby right after I talked to Michael Phelps. I was asked to leave. And I was like, hallelujah. And I said, and the guy that asked me to leave, the security guy's name was Peter. So I said, oh, Peter, like Simon Peter. And Jesus said, I love Simon Peter. So as I'm exiting, and I know I'm getting a promotion, as you were talking about leadership, and we need to be able to handle everything right now with God's grace, but having his understanding. And I just have a couple quick points. It says the beginning of the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. And the Lord kept telling, in my spirit, like, find out what it means to have the fear of the Lord. And I'm going to read it, what it means. And when your listeners, and when we get this thing, then we understand the people that are caught in these places. I used to have things, but when I got broken and delivered and restored, God started showing me. He says the fear of the Lord is to hate evil, pride and arrogancy, and the evil way, and the forward path do I hate. Counsel is mine, and sound wisdom. I am understanding, I have strength. By me kings reign, and princes decree justice. And I'm getting this understanding of what it means. He says that, we would be priests and kings, and I'm getting a better understanding by the Word of God. That is Proverbs 8, verses 13, 14, and 15. And my last scripture is Malachi. And this is for all the proud and haughty and happy people out there, because the word of the Lord says such. And the Lord said, don't get caught up in the agenda of the effeminates and all the things, because he sees it. He sees it. We just go after the spiritual part of it. We go after the demonic realm. We go after the satanic realm. And my last scripture is this one in Malachi 3. Let me go to it real quick. And yea, we call the proud happy, yea, they that work wickedness are set up. Yea, they that tempt God are even delivered. And they're going to have a choice to be delivered, to be restored, or to be burned in the lake of fire. And that's what I want the listeners to get. You have a choice to be delivered into restoration through the loving arms of Jesus Christ, our King, or you can refuse that and end up like all the wicked terrors. And I love you guys, and I'm standing on top of the hill in El Dorado Hills, and Lord, we just thank you. And I'm going to do a shout for the Lord. Yahweh! Hallelujah!
Oh, amen, and thank you for calling in with those scriptures. Those are great scriptures and very important. And thank you for sharing those with us. You have a great night. God bless you.
Yeah, absolutely. God bless. Very interesting, too. Someone not afraid to spread the word regardless of the venue. And he talked about, and he wasn't really, he was talking, he was talking, about the what was that, golf tournament, and about being in Harrah's, the casino in Lake Tahoe. So, regardless of the venue, it's great. And that's what we should know, because we have people who work with celebrities and people, well-known people, who minister to them, and this is what we need to do. Before the next caller, Joe, I think this is important because, folks, next Monday, Steve Quayle and the Guerrilla Economist will be on the show. Let me say this: the manipulation of the gold prices does suggest that the death of the U.S. dollar is close at hand, and I've written about the killing off of the U.S. dollar, and this is something people don't understand. China is maneuvering to take our dollar, the U.S. dollar, away as the world's reserve currency. Folks, if that happens, or when that happens, it is the agenda of this administration to usher that in. Now, when will that take place? I don't know. Who knows? We're going to get some clarification on this from the Guerrilla Economist V this Monday, and hopefully with some specificity regarding what China is doing. But if you look at two things I'd like you to look at. If you recall, when I wrote an article concerning about the meeting I had with my DHS insider, he said, when the metal prices begin to bottom, that's when things will begin to get very ugly. And that was written way before gold and silver prices hit took the tank that they did. Just want to point this out. In 2009, a Chinese State Council advisor, Jai, I don't know how to pronounce these names from China, said that a team of experts from Shanghai and Beijing had set up a task force to consider expanding China's gold reserves. Remember, folks understand, pay very close attention to what China is doing with gold. No one knows how much gold China has. But we do believe, however, it is extremely underestimated. In other words, they're underestimating or lowballing the figures of gold. Now, that said, they could have as I don't know, 6,000 tons of gold. But anyway, as long as gold prices are suppressed, China is going to continue to be a large-scale buyer, okay? If gold prices remain low, it's going to serve to accelerate the timeline for China to take down the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency. When this happens, and Bix Weir, by the way, said that we're at a point in our system and in the manipulation where people within the Fed and within our government, are you ready for this, are ready to pull the plug on the game and basically crash the system. So how close are we? Tune in Monday for specific information about this. But definitely keep your eye on this. Understand the manipulation is intense. There have been big withdrawals of gold and silver from the COMEX. Depletion of COMEX gold warehouse stocks continues. It's incredible to watch, but we are looking at a impending financial collapse as we speak. So just keep that in mind.
All right, we're going to move on to another caller here. We do have an audio from Mark Levin. Maybe we can hold off till tomorrow. But we're going to go to area code. We're going to go back to 304. Let's see if you can reconnect with us now. 304, you're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hello, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hey, good to hear you guys again tonight. The Fukushima thing it's been on my heart, ever since it happened. It was, I'd happened to be reading in Jeremiah. I've been studying, going through the book of Jeremiah at that time. And, how he says before the king of Babylon comes, and you can look at this worldwide. It's not Jerusalem, because the king of Babylon, the one that's coming, is coming worldwide. And as far as our food is poisoned, we eat our children. And then I was reading on the internet at that time, about Pepsi putting baby, fetuses in the flavoring, and here we are eating our children, and here we are with poisoned everything.
Yeah.
And King of Babylon is on his way.
Exactly. The Fukushima is really it's a global event, folks. If we only understood, or if people in this country only understood how Fukushima, when you started out talking about this, caller, when you first started out, this is an event that is perhaps, this is the worst ecological event over the last 6,000 years. The worst thing, it's incredible.
It's horrible. And if one of those cooling, where they have the rods, if one of those were to collapse, do you know what it would do? people don't really have an idea. I've listened to Arnie Gunderson and different people about the gamma radiation that's coming off of that thing right now. And you can't even get close to it. You can't get close to it in any kind of a suit. They can't do anything. If that thing ends up in a pile, it would be devastating to the world. And they want to fight a world war. I'll tell you what, instead of using their resources to fight, there's the world war right there. Fix it.
Fix it. You're right. They could contain it. They could allow it to, the China syndrome type event where they could essentially bury it, but they're doing nothing, and no one is talking about it. You've got bobblehead pundits like Ann Coulter, and I'm sorry if people, elevate her to some sort of goddess status, who go on these talk shows and say radiation is good for you. Come on, we're talking about an event that will. This is not a gift that keeps on giving. This is a tragedy that continues to worsen and deepen, yet no one is talking about it, and no one is doing a damn thing about it, and everyone should be angry and demand answers, caller. Demand answers.
Yes, exactly. And you don't hear it anywhere. And it is and it's going on every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. That radiation is spewing out of there, and they do nothing. And it is poison.
Right. Have you noticed, though? I mean, primarily it's kind of a northern hemisphere type event. And have you noticed? And I look, caller or people, I understand too. It's a global event, but I mean the primary poisoning right now is in the northern hemisphere, if you will. The majority of the problem, I should say. But you've got these royalty, these leaders, even George Bush getting property in the southern hemisphere. Come on, I mean, no one's going to call him out on this stuff. Aren't our lives worth anything?
I don't know how God rectifies the situation, but I know He will. We live in this time, and people, and they say we aren't prepared for this time, but I know that God has His chosen, His elect here at this time in history for a reason. And we're a lot stronger than people give us credit for.
I agree.
And
I agree.
And like you said, we'll have to know our leaders. But I'm with you guys. I'm tired of the lies. I'm tired of the lie, and that's all they can do is lie because they can't tell the truth. And you guys out there on the front lines telling the truth every night, and we just thank you for it.
Well, God bless you, caller. Thank you.
There are people out there that are telling the truth, and we do appreciate it, believe me. And
well, thank you.
We're with you.
All right, sir. Well, God bless you. Thanks for your call.
God
Keep
bless
listening.
You.
And
I will.
Thanks for being a part of our family. Really,
yes,
we look at you.
I am.
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, buddy.
Have a great night.
Real quick, Michael Snyder wrote an article recently about the 20 controversial questions the mainstream media won't touch with a 10-foot pole or 20-foot pole. Did you know, by the way, the average American watches how many hours of television a month, Joe, do you think?
A month? Yeah. An average American.
Yeah. Now, consider the fact that the number of hours, there's 168 hours in a week, okay? Just as a benchmark. Folks, there's 168 hours in a week. The average American watches how much television per month? What's your guess?
100 hours.
153 hours, which is...
Oh, man. Like a week's worth.
Well, yeah, basically a week And wow. But anyway, 20 questions the mainstream media will touch with a 10-foot pole. First, was foul play involved in the helicopter crash that killed 22 members of the Navy's elite SEAL Team 6 unit? Why were all the bodies cremated? Why was the helicopter's black box never recovered? And during the memorial service for the fallen soldiers, why was an imam, a Muslim cleric, allowed to pray an Islamic prayer that included the language of U.S. soldiers burning in hell? Has this been brought out by anyone? Why has the head of the NSA allowed to call a top-secret meeting of the U.S. House of Representatives and to use it to try to strong-arm members to vote against a bill that would place some significant restrictions on the agency itself? Why is the media so silent about the fact that a 72-year-old retiring IRS lawyer testified that the IRS officials in D.C. planned and oversaw the agency's improper targeting of conservative groups? Why did the man who leads the IRS Office of Chief Counsel meet with Barack Hussein Obama just days before, 2 days if I recall, or 3 perhaps, before his office issued new guidelines about how to handle applications from conservative groups? Why were the records that showed how often officials had accessed Christine O'Donnell's personal tax documents destroyed? We just heard about that. Why has Barack Obama ordered federal government workers to spy on the lifestyles, the attitudes, and the behaviors of their fellow workers? Well, is this a taste of what's to come? That's just a couple of questions from an excellent article by Michael Snyder.
There are some another article here I want to hit real quick before we wrap up the show. GOP's ISA, U.S. Postal Service, plans to end home delivery. Mail delivery to the doorstep may be a thing of the past as lawmakers consider ways to cut costs to save cash-strapped U.S. Postal Service, which lost $16 billion in 2012. According to CNN Money, the agency is working toward a more centralized delivery approach in which residents pick up their mail from a mailbox at the curb or clusters of mailboxes within their neighborhoods. The practice is already being adopted for new houses and developments, and some House Republicans want it rolled out universally. So doing away with doorstep delivery is how they plan to save
do you know the reason? By the way, an interesting piece of history. Do you know how the house delivery by mail persons to homes, individual homes, started and why it started?
Was it because of the war?
It was because of the Civil War, and folks, it would be good for you to research that topic by yourselves, because you'll find that the mail delivery to homes was because the bad news delivered by the mail in a community setting just did not sit well with the people who got the news, and of course their wailing affected other people and their sorrow.
Whole villages or whole towns of people that had, family fighting in a war, and you had some opening mail learning that their family died, while others opening mail from their family. It would not be pretty.
Yeah, and I thought that was such an interesting. I thought that was so interesting. I did not know that until I was researching. That was one of the reasons why the Postal Service began to deliver to homes. But yeah, expect that you'll have a bank of mailboxes on the edge of your street, or well, just like an apartment complex would, or a trailer park, or an a big apartment complex, where you drive up and you've got a bank of mailboxes, and that's what we're going to be seeing. I just want to go a couple more questions here very quickly. Some important ones that I missed. Why, for example, and I think this is perhaps the next couple are perhaps the most important. Why do some measurements indicate that the water near Fukushima nuclear power plant is 90,000 times more radioactive than the normal drinking water? Did you get that? 90,000 more times. See, mainstream media, silent, crickets. Why is the U.S. media not explaining to us that the Fukushima nuclear plant has continued to leak huge amounts of radioactive water into the Pacific? Well, we're talking about this as well. I mean, we've been talking about this. Why does Wall Street veteran Art Cashin believe that there is a conspiracy to suppress the price of gold. Again, this is something we've talked about just even today. Did you know this? Obama administration, they're pushing a plan that would force Israel to give up control of the Temple Mount. Yeah, that's right, Barack Hussein Obama. And people laugh and they chuckle and they will kid you and say, oh, you're just being foolish. There is a flag, a Muslim flag, figuratively, folks, flying over the White House. And I would not be surprised. And this, I'm dead serious. I wouldn't be surprised. If you told me, or if Jay Carney came out and said, yeah, you know, I got to tell you something. Obama prays to Mecca 5 times a day. I wouldn't be surprised. But anyway, why is the parent company of Fox News funneling massive amounts of money to Democratic candidates? Could it be that the right-left paradigm, as we have said, is completely gone? Of course it is. Why are the U.S. governments, or what governments? Well, okay. Why is the U.S. government teaming up with Monsanto against opponents of GMO food? Why? And why aren't these things being reported? Seriously. You know, can you, ladies and gentlemen?
That's a question. Yeah.
I mean, come on. And you talk to people, maybe at the checkout line of your store, you know, when you go through and they look at you like you're crazy. You're crazy. Well, how did an illegal immigrant, by the way, rack up 37 criminal convictions in one single county without being deported? Yet you've got Janet Napolitano and Obama saying, "Oh, you know," and even the Republicans saying, "Well, we're strong on immigration enforcement of illegal aliens." Really? That's strength, right? But once again, let me reiterate, why is the parent company of Fox News funneling massive amounts of money to Democratic candidates? Because, ladies and gentlemen, we have tyranny and royalty, basically, running this country. It's a one-party system. The media is a captured operation. We